Hey, on today's episode, I sit down with JD Goss from JDDesignandAntiques.com. JD has an outstanding shop right down in West Fork, right on Main Street. And I really can't wait for you to hear this particular episode. I just wanted to give you an update in advance. When you hear this episode, silly me, I had a little bit of a technical issue and my batteries died around 28 minutes into this particular podcast. So I apologize for that. But as the dutiful podcaster that I am, I always have a backup. So that's when you hear the audio quality goes down just a little bit because I use my iPhone as a backup recorder whenever I do a podcast episode. So that's why you're going to hear a drop off in the audio quality. So please accept my apologies in advance. So without further ado, JD Goss from JDDesignandAntiques.com. Cue the music.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and this particular episode is being recorded during the COVID-19 scare, concern, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. But we are not letting the COVID-19 virus get in the way of us getting out, meeting with some interesting people, and recording responsibly, I might add, because I'm not in a room with like a 1,000 other people or anything like that. I'm actually just sitting across from a gentleman, JD Goss, who is the owner and proprietor of JD Design and Antiques right here in West Fork, Arkansas. West Fork is just due south of Fayetteville, about 5 miles or less from Drake Field. After you leave Fayetteville, you hit West Fork, I think, and there might be one other town in between there. So, but as I was telling JD, this is my first time, or our first time, recording an episode not in Fayetteville, Springdale, Bentonville, or Rogers. And West Fork is part of Northwest Arkansas. So without further ado, JD Goss. JD, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Randy.
Good. So I'm excited to have you on. We have a mutual friend, and she said, I remember her saying, you've got to meet this guy, JD. He has some amazing antiques, and just everything that he does is really interesting. So when I heard about you, I said, I have to see what you're all about. As I was telling you earlier, a former ex-girlfriend of mine, her dad was a huge collector. And my father was a big antiques collector, but this girl that I used to date before I married my lovely wife of almost 20 years, her dad was a big time collector in California. And he was originally from Mississippi, and he knew a little something about upholstery. He knew something about fine art, and he gave me, in the period of time that I spent around him, he gave me a real education on that and how to truly understand and appreciate, what has already been created from the vantage point of antiques and collectibles. And so I certainly don't know nearly even a minute amount of what you know. And I certainly would love for you to kind of share with our audience a little bit about what you know and what you've experienced. But I remember when I moved here 5 years ago, I always wanted to know, wow, I wonder what the antique scene is like here. I wonder what collectibles are like here in Northwest Arkansas. I mean, you have little places here or there, but when I walked into your shop today, and folks, I got to tell you, you need to come down here to West Fork. I'll make sure I get you the directions, but it's basically just go south on Business Route 71, past Drake Field about 5 miles, and you make a right turn on Main Street, and JD's location is literally right there. But this is not necessarily a commercial for his company. It is certainly a chance for you to know, especially those that are relocating to this area and looking to find a place that might be a purveyor of really high quality antiques and a purveyor of collectibles that, will stand the test of time. That's why they're here in the first place. But more importantly, will be able to, be an added dimension to maybe a house that you're building or something along those lines. So without further ado, JD Gass, listen, I'd love for you to just share with our audience, and this is what we normally do, is we ask for people to give us your superhero origin stories. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about who you are, and I learned a little bit about your history and where you're originally from, but I'd love for you just to kind of give our audience the Cliff Note version of that.
Well, the Cliff Note, I started dibbling and dabbling with antiques when I was probably 12 or 13.
Okay.
I really enjoyed going down to the antique shop at the end of the hill where we lived and hanging out with the old timers and listening to their stories.
Mm-hmm.
I would try to recite them at times, just kind of like I was wanting to be something, because I was still trying to find myself. I was just a kid.
Right.
And I mowed the grass there. And one day, Charlie, who went to school with my mother, so there's quite the age difference, told me I should buy a piece of furniture from him. He said he had paid $95 and he'd take $50. So I thought this was a really good business. So I bought it. It took me probably 2 summers to work it off. And one day, Bob Fox was another antique dealer, came in, and Charlie told him, he said, JD probably has something up there at the house you'd be interested in. So Fox came up, looked at it. It was a little washstand. And he said, how much is it? I said, $95. He said, I'll take it. So that kind of got me hooked.
How old were you?
I was 13 then.
Wow.
So I'm 43 now. That's 30 years ago.
30 years
Seems
ago.
like forever.
Okay.
But I went from that and then learning how to do restoration work. I always was fond of doing things with wood.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in the woods. I always just like putting stuff together. And I don't want this to sound boastful, but it seemed simple to me, the mechanics of putting wood together.
Yeah.
And it seemed so natural. So I took full advantage of that, and my parents supported me in that way. And then lots of people in the business came to like me and knew that I would do work cheap. So I got a lot of work. And then I went to work in Washington, D.C. when I was 16. And the luck of the draw was I went to work with a master carpenter. And he taught me there's only one way to do something. It's the right way.
Right.
And the standards in Washington, D.C. 30 years ago were as high as they are anywhere now.
Right.
And we worked for a very well-known builder there. And I got a great education in building fine homes and remodels. And then I just always ended up going back to antiques.
Mm-hmm.
I always did it on the side, but I think when the recession hit here, we moved here, my family and I have 4 children, and we moved here 21 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and my oldest daughter was 3 weeks old.
Wow.
Yeah. And I came here not knowing anyone, not knowing anything about Fayetteville. In fact, I think it was probably a year before I even went down to Dixon Street after I lived here. I moved to Lincoln. I thought, boy, this place is really so slow compared to Washington, D.C. But
Right.
I moved to Lincoln. I mean, if I would have moved to Fayetteville, it would have been different. And I met some antique dealers who kind of took me under their wing, gave me work. Then I always did a little bit of building, home building, restoration. But I fine-tuned the restoration, and I still am to this day. It's probably what I'm best known for is museum quality restoration of antiques. And but I don't do work for other people. I buy my own merchandise, pick my own stuff, and I work on the projects I want to work on.
Right.
And then I sell them and, try to make something on it. But most of it's a labor of love. It's to see the end result, what time is put into a piece to get it back to the condition which we sell it in or present it in. You cannot charge what it's worth to get it to that point many a times.
Right.
So it's, just working in numbers. But the pride is when you get it done, when you see the thing come to life again. It's something that's been around for 150, 200 years. And in a way, you've resurrected it. There's such a sense of accomplishment. That's really my biggest pay.
Oh, man. I love that. So, I mean, obviously, you're not really trying to appeal to the Bob's crowd or any
No.
or Sam's or anybody else as far as, and there is a organization or store for any type of consumer. But I mean, certainly what you're doing is at a whole different level in terms of appreciation, in terms of putting things into it. So instead of you taking somebody's couch and reupholstering it or adding to it, you are basically identifying the things that you think have the most value and rehabbing them or refurbishing them and then making them available to the public.
Yeah, and I think what you used a word that I use in my advertising, a purveyor of, I say I'm the purveyor of the South's finest antiques.
Okay, all right.
But I don't say get it at JD's, but
Right.
We could.
Yes.
But like you said, there's a venue for everything you want in Northwest Arkansas. But what we have here is something special, not only to Northwest Arkansas, but something special to the nation, really.
Yeah.
We've had customers from Nova Scotia. We sell a lot of stuff, New York, Jersey, Texas, Wisconsin, California. There's only a handful of states we haven't shipped to. It's funny, I'll buy something in New Jersey. I'll ship it here, put it on eBay after it's restored, and somebody will call me. And we'll be talking, and I'll say, well, where do you live? I can get you a shipping quote. And they'll tell me a name of a place. I'm like, okay, well, I bought this in, Newark, New Jersey. And they're like, that's 15 minutes from me. Happens. I mean, it happens so many times in my life that it just kind of seems like second nature now. It's strange how that migrates back home.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I mean, as I look and I'm going to share some of the pictures in our show notes. I mean, folks, I got to tell you, it would be worth it to schedule an appointment to come down and visit JD in his studio here and really just see the works that he has. He's allowed me to take several photos that I will put on the show notes because I think it's good to get an idea of the breadth of his collection. But I think, the thing that is interesting, and I would love for you to kind of speak to it, is when you got here 21 years ago and as you've continued to evolve over time, what have you seen the antique scene become here in Northwest Arkansas?
Well, I'll have to say this, and it sounds bad, but the word antiques has been cheapened.
Mm-hmm.
The word has lost its value in itself, the word antiques. You used to go in an antique shop, and you're from the East Coast, so Boston area. I mean, crazy amounts of really good stuff. And if you want to know the truth of it, the East Coast is where I get probably 70, 80% of my items because you had the very high-end furniture manufacturers there. It all came, if they brought in mahogany or something, it came in on that coast. There were so many reasons, and that's where America started, and then it gradually went west. So in Arkansas, we never really had really, really fine stuff. If we did, it was hit and miss because we were farming poor communities.
Yeah.
And it was utilitarian use antiques. So we have a lot of the turn of the century oak pie safes and, ice boxes, clawfoot tables, things like that. You always seen that stuff 20 years ago. Even that stuff's thinned out a lot. But now this isn't to minimalize it, but antiques, you see antiques on a sign now, and you're hesitant to stop because it's not antiques. They're selling Beanie Babies and NASCAR memorabilia. Yeah. So we have a real antique shop. And it's not to say we're better than anybody else. We just have a venue that's more of what you would have seen 20 some years ago. Even though we're in a very affluent area, the problem is the economy. When people in 06, 07, 08, it got really, really rough. The rest of the country, I was traveling a lot then, selling it at auctions, buying out east. And the rest of the country, I was in Alabama, Mississippi a lot. Well, they had been in a recession for 3 years.
Right.
And I was trimming homes up here in Northwest Arkansas. And I seen it coming, but because we had a big dip in the economy. But it was happening all over the United States before it ever hit here.
Yeah.
And with that, when people quit building big homes, when they start minimalizing, they want to simplify their life, go to smaller homes, stuff goes to storage. Well, antiques don't sell. So it drove a lot of people out of the business. What I've tried to deal in is anything I bought, whenever I buy something new, I try to buy something just as unique or a step better. I've always tried to have that philosophy, because when you have something that is at the top of the food chain, the people who want the thing at the top of the food chain will always want that.
Right.
Yeah. Where even my position, I'm trying to pay my bills, I'm trying to eat. Do I buy this piece right here? Yeah. Do I buy this piece right now, or do I pay my mortgage and eat? It's a pretty easy answer. But a lot of the things we sell are long-term investment pieces. They're actually gaining much of the value that they had at one time that got depreciated, I guess, with the fall in the economy. But now it's gaining speed back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, antique shops, they're just not what they used to be. And I really wish there were more, because that was something that I enjoyed as a kid, going with my grandpa and my grandma, going to the auctions and hitting antique shops and always finding that gem that you found was special. And I know them days aren't over, but they're few and far between.
Far between, yeah. It's funny because I've driving to like Tulsa, you see some of these kind of like what's the best way to describe them? Flea markets, if you will. And I found, like, mentioning this gentleman that I mentioned, his name was Tommy McKee, that really taught me a lot about antiques. He used to go to a lot of flea markets and he would get some tremendous deals. And this was when I lived in the Bay Area, and, there'd be some old school families that were in the Bay Area that had collected some stuff from back east, of all places. And it was there in the Bay Area, and they were selling it. And a lot of it they sold to him and to others. And I mean, some of the stuff, museum quality paintings. I mean, just, things that you just don't normally see. And the things that he was able to pick up, at a flea market would be amazing. I can only imagine. And I've actually been back to one of his favorite haunts of a flea market, which was the Ashby Avenue Flea Market in Berkeley, California, where he got a ton of stuff that he then either reupholstered or redid and then resold. But, the quality isn't always there as much as it used to be. So.
No, and I wonder if a lot of this stuff went to collection. I hope that it went to private collections, or went to museums and these type things. But it used to be you go to a flea market because you want to find that one thing.
Yeah.
And it was there. I mean, it really was. If you didn't find it, one of your buddies got it. You're like, look what I found. You're like, I was in there last week and I didn't see anything. I found a teapot.
Yeah. And they don't really have anything like that around here.
They don't.
Yeah.
It used to be open air flea markets were a thing that were huge. You'd see during the spring and fall, summer months, they'd be set up on the side of the roads and be so many vendors. And yeah, I'd like to have that come back. I think the demand for it I really think the demand is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is taking on a big responsibility to organize such an event and try to make everything work. And then you have to somewhat police it, or you are going to have, the baby clothes and all this stuff, which, like you said, it has a place, but maybe not in that venue.
Yeah. Well, so tell me this, because as I'm looking around and actually looking at your collection, I mean, you've got a lot of stuff that's actually quite affordable. And it's not like it's not like everybody that could walk in here would be offended by the prices, but kind of walk me through, individuals that might be listening to this that are thinking, man, I've been wanting to buy some antiques, or I relocated here from X and X such a place. And I've been thinking about, some of my family's always said I should add some quality pieces to my collection and make sure that I have something that's going to last. Outside of that, what should people be looking for, or what do you offer that's a way to give a person a toehold into this whole area of collecting, not just memorabilia, but just collecting something that is from a different time, a different place, and it has its own unique value?
Well, to me, this is the $1 million question, because it is hard to make money. It doesn't even matter if you have a well-paying job or if you got a bonus and you have some extra money. Money is hard to come by. It doesn't matter how much you have. It's hard to come by. And our sweet spot when it comes to clients right now, I would say, is the 30 to 40 crowd.
Okay.
Believe it or not, right? I mean, It's surprising, because antiques used to be like the 60 to 75-year-old crowd, but that's not the way the market is now. And I believe 100% that these shows that we all find, I find them interesting. I say I'll find them entertaining. American Pickers, Pawn Stars,
the Roadshow.
Right, yeah. Antique Roadshow. These are entertaining TV shows. The Antique Roadshow is legit, okay? And so are some of the others. Are some of them staged? Yeah, a little bit, but who cares? What it has done is it's put into this business what was going the way of the dinosaur.
Yeah.
The business, the antiques, was going the way of the antique. And we needed a shot in the arm. We really did. So now people say, okay, I made this much money. I can go to so-and-so retail giant and buy a bed. I'm going to spend $1,500 as my budget. And they get it home. It's painted MDF, okay?
Right.
They painted grain on there to make it look old. They took a design that is from the 1800s, and they're bringing it back. They're making it look good, and they make it a queen or a king or whatever. And you're spending $1,500. Well, you find that it's rickety 6 months later. You found that the rail busted out, and then you put it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, and you're trying to get $150, and then someone offers you $30.
Yeah.
They can bring that $1,500 here, and I will gladly take it from them. But I'll give them in exchange for that money. I could sell them a bed that was imported African mahogany, and it was made in 1845, 1850. We're talking a Civil War, pre-Civil War period bed made in America out of imported mahogany that's been around for, 170 years?
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, and you could eat off of it. I mean, it's absolutely perfect, right?
Right.
For $1,500. Okay, times get tough. You need to sell something. Hey, we got that bed. We spend $1,500. You can all sell it and get your money.
Right.
Okay, but think about what we can turn this over. We could leave this to somebody. This can be an heirloom piece, and that's what antiques were.
Yeah.
And what happened with a lot of antiques, people bought lesser than quality antiques, and they were rickety.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of antiques that we've sold in the past 30 years, made by Larkin Soap Company, where you exchange your soap vouchers for furniture.
Right.
And they'd send you a piece of furniture.
Yeah.
I mean, how long did you think it would last? It lasted 100 years. That's not bad, really.
Yeah.
But, and we sell a lot of handmade 100% wool rugs, which is, you can go buy a brand new room size rug that looks just like one of our rugs and say it's $600. You vacuum it 10 times and you have half the rug that you started with.
Right.
Or you can buy a wool rug that's new from us that will last 100 years. Or we have a rug that's 100 years old will last another 100 years.
Yeah.
It's when you start looking about how hard it is to come up with money. I think the biggest thing with me is like when I write a check for something, it doesn't seem real to me. Write a check is no big deal. But when you're cashing out, when you're putting out $100 bills in front of you, you realize how hard it is to come up with that money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hate to see people waste money.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste money. But we've had a lot of people come in that never came in here to buy an antique. They come in to look at a rug and we furnish their house. But they got to get in the door. We got to see them.
Exactly. How are they finding you right now?
Our biggest probably promoter is ATN.
Okay.
And they play us before and after Antique Roadshow.
Okay.
We have a great relationship with them. They've been very, very generous with airtime as far as showing our sponsorship.
Okay.
That's one. We used eBay a lot. We sold a lot on eBay, which, I just don't like putting stuff on eBay.
I understand.
I'd rather be the hands-on work.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to include I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast in there in the future and
Absolutely.
say, yeah, man, those guys, I did an episode with that Randy character and all of a sudden I just got a flood of interest and new people that showed up at my doorstep. So, I mean, you have your collection is, I mean, just to give the listeners an idea. I mean, JD has a horse from the Civil War. Yes, you heard me say this correctly. A horse from the Civil War. He has some pictures of some African Americans right around the period of Reconstruction, which, I mean, historically is significant, but more importantly, the types of photographs or pictures that they are just denote that there's something special about them. I mean, you'd only have to see it for yourself to understand this. He has just about all kinds of machinery that's been repurposed. I mean, just a really, really cool old school hot water heater that was turned into a 2-person chair. And I mean, you talk about, you couldn't lift this, but with 3 people. I mean, it's that heavy, and it's not going anywhere. And like, as JD said before, the quality nowadays in just about anything that we get, and this is just kind of part of our society. I mean, we just don't make things that last anymore, but the quality of material and the workmanship that goes into a lot of what JD has here under his roof is simply amazing, and you just don't see it every day. And so if you get a table, you're guaranteed that the table is probably going to outlive you unless it's destroyed in a fire. It's going to outlive you. Your son or daughter is going to take it and pass it on to their son or daughter, and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, you really do have a family heirloom and a great memory and tremendous stories that go alongside of that. But I would certainly encourage anyone listening to, figure out a way to come on down here and check out what JD's doing, because there's some really cool things happening here in West Fork, and I'd love for you to share with our audience what are your hours here, and what's the best way for people to get in contact with you.
Yeah, we have a website, jddesign@antiques.com.
Okay, we'll put that in our show notes.
Yeah, and our store here is at 37 Main Street. We're open from 9 to 5 every day except Sunday. And it's going to be myself here, my wife. We're here.
You're there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to stay in the back in the workshop.
Well, you're working.
There.
I mean, you have so many projects. I mean,
I know. But you'd be surprised how many people I talk to. My wife's like, talking to people's not making any money. But I'm like,
of course not.
But I love talking to people. I love sharing. I've gained knowledge. How do I do it? Because I listen to people when they talk.
Yeah.
When they gave me a hint, or when they gave me a clue, or showed me a trick, I tried to put that in a memory bank somewhere up there so I could recall it.
Yeah.
I'd love to share that with the next person. And that's something that anyone can receive for free.
Yeah.
I'd like to say, Randy, real quick, I wanted to say we're starting a new venture, kind of new. It's been in my mind for a long time, but the repurposing, the building custom tables, but using a lot of live edge, a lot of big slabs, all in reharvested trees, a lot of which came down during the tornado. Yeah. We lost some record. I have several trees. Yeah, I have several that are Arkansas records, and they're recorded master trees that if it wasn't for being able to save them, they would have went to the wood pile. So eventually, hopefully soon, there'll be a table in someone's living room, someone's dining room.
Yeah, man, that is amazing. And I know that, repurposing these trees for what they are, certainly want to encourage people to kind of check out what JD's doing here with the different tables that you're creating and others that are just, like I said, you can't, there's no two are alike.
No.
So, there are definitely some differences there. So, yeah, I think that's amazing. Well, great. I think that's great. I really appreciate you taking time to share with our audience a little bit about who you guys are and what things are all about. And, I want to encourage people to come down here and check you guys out. Again, it's just 71 South, just about 5 miles past Drake Field. You hook a right onto, if you're coming from Fayetteville, you hook a right on the main, and they are literally right there as soon as you make that right. So definitely come down here and check out JD and his team, and certainly mention that you heard about them first on the podcast. And I'm sure he'll take care of you and outside of giving you a high five, really kind of show you all the great things that he has here under this roof. It's this outstanding facility. It's, if nothing else, it's worth a visit, but definitely come down here, bring your wallet, and be prepared to be blown away by some of the items that he has here in his collection. Just absolutely stunning. And JD, I want to thank you again for being on the podcast.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Randy. I really appreciate you having me on, and whatever becomes of it is good for us, but we really appreciate the opportunity for sure.
No, absolutely. Well, there you have it. Okay, so perfect. Well, there you have it, folks. That's another episode in the books. JD Goss from JD Design and Antiques, and certainly want to encourage you to come check them out here in West Fork. And it's West Fork. I was reminded it's not West Forks. There's not multiple forks involved. There's only one fork. And certainly want to encourage you to come down here and check out JD and his company, and maybe get a piece of artwork or something. You never know. There might be something here exactly what you've been looking for. You've got a little space in that upstairs den. Maybe you have a space downstairs in your living room that's just clamoring for a piece of furniture. Come see JD, and he might be able to help you out. So That's all we have for this week. I really appreciate you guys checking us out here at I Am Northwest Arkansas. Remember, we're everywhere that good podcasts can be found. We would really appreciate feedback from you. If you get a chance, just give us a review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere that you listen to this podcast. And remember, we have a new episode that comes out every Monday. So please continue to check us out, continue to share us with your friends, and let them know how great of a place Northwest Arkansas is by just sharing with them this podcast and all the great stories like JD's that make up this place that we call home here in the Ozarks. That's all for now. I will see you next week. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IamNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.